Hello everyone, this is the Paladin speaking. Today we're reviewing The Outer Worlds 2, the long-awaited sequel to Obsidian's spacefaring RPG that carved its own identity as a smaller, smarter, and more sarcastic alternative to Fallout. It's been a few years since the first one, and this sequel lands with bigger worlds, prettier graphics, and more choices. But does it actually do enough to stand out? Right off the bat, The Outer Worlds 2 doesn't try to reinvent the wheel. And that's both its strength and weakness. The story is interesting enough to keep you going, but it's not something that'll blow your mind. It's another satirical look at corporate greed and human stupidity. Fun, but not groundbreaking. What is great, though, is the writing. Dialogue remains one of Obsidian's strongest suits. It's witty, reactive, and packed with roleplay potential. Every conversation feels like a playground for personality. Whether you're being charming, sarcastic, or an absolute menace, the game lets you shape your character's voice. There are multiple ways to solve quests, through speech, stealth, combat, or just good old-fashioned bribery. And that level of freedom is what makes this series shine. Even if the story isn't unforgettable, the way you experience it still feels personal. Now, let's talk about companions, because they're fine. None of them really stood out to me the way some of the first game's companions did. They're functional with their own quirks and questlines, but none of them left a strong impression. Ironically, I found the NPCs, even the vendors, more memorable. Their dialogue and personalities had more life to them somehow. That said, if you click with one of the companions, you'll enjoy their banter and quests. If you don't, it won't ruin your experience. They don't take away from the game, but they could have added more if they had a bit more depth or stronger combat presence. And speaking of combat presence, they die fast. Too fast. The core gameplay loop is still familiar. Talk, loot, shoot, repeat. Combat feels very similar to the first one. Functional, but not exceptional. Gunplay is snappy enough, with some nice weapon variety and plenty of ways to customize your loadout, but it doesn't reach the heights of modern shooters or even Fallout's systems. Still, there's enough depth to keep things interesting. The mix of armor types, perks, and weapon modifications gives you plenty of options to build your own playstyle. The armor system is there, it works, but it doesn't feel as fleshed out as it could be. Once you find your favorite set of mods, you'll probably stick with them for most of the game. Exploration, on the other hand, is solid but still not entirely satisfying. The worlds are larger this time, and the new zones are beautiful to look at. But they still feel more like big quest hubs than living, breathing sandboxes. You can explore, loot, and discover secrets, but you won't get that same itch you feel from fully open-world games. Visually, The Outer Worlds 2 had some good improvements. It runs on Unreal Engine 5, and you can tell. Lighting, reflections, and facial animations are all a big step up from the first game. In fact, the facial animation stood out to me more than I expected. Performance-wise, it was pretty consistent for me. I played on very high settings and didn't encounter any serious bugs, crashes, or performance dips. But I do realize that the game was launched poorly optimized and has given a lot of issues for some players, which sucks. On the other hand, the voice acting is consistently good. Even the smaller side characters sell their roles well, and the humor lands more often than not. The character creation is just fine. Nothing revolutionary, but solid overall. You pick your background, assign your stats, and choose traits that slightly change how people react to you. The lucky trait stood out to me. It gives some funny outcomes to quests, even in the main one. Playing as a lucky jerk renegade was a blast. The writing really lets you be morally flexible, which gives every playthrough its own flavor. It's a good example of how much role-playing freedom Obsidian still manages to pack into dialogue. That said, your decisions don't always carry lasting impact. Some quests have great payoffs later on, but most choices feel self-contained, meaningful in the moment, but forgotten by the next mission. That's something I wish the sequel pushed further, especially considering how reactive the writing feels moment to moment. Side quests are a highlight again. They're often more interesting than the main story, with quirky characters, moral dilemmas, and multiple ways to solve them. Obsidian has always excelled at this, turning what looks like filler content into meaningful world building. There's also more of everything. More quests, more dialogue, more variety in environments. The planets are bigger, the settlements more layered, and the factions more distinct. You can tell the developers wanted to make the world feel like a step forward without losing what made the first one charming. So, how does The Outer Worlds 2 measure up? It's bigger, longer, and better built than the first game. The graphics are prettier, the role-playing depth is still strong, and the humor is as sharp as ever. It's also smoother technically, at least it was for me, but at the same time, it doesn't completely evolve beyond what we already know. The combat is still okay, not great, the companions are serviceable, not memorable, and while your choices are fun, their long-term impact still feels limited. Even so, it's a game that knows what it is and delivers it. If you liked the first one, this one is worth your time. If you didn't, this probably won't make you play the first one. For me, The Outer Worlds 2 is a better, more refined version of what came before, and it earns a solid 8 out of 10. Not amazing, not disappointing, just a really good time in a familiar, clever world. So, what did you think? Will you be jumping back into The Outer Worlds for round 2? Let me know in the comments. This is the Paladin, signing off, and I will see you next time.